Lauren Carter leaned back in her office chair, staring at the faint string of holiday lights taped around the window frame of the history department. They blinked half-heartedly, as though even electricity itself had grown weary of pretending to be cheerful. She rubbed her temples and sighed. Another Christmas was coming, and she felt nothing but exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. A message from her best friend at work. Clara lit the screen. "You're not coming to the department Christmas party. Half the staff is already drunk. Don't make me come drag you out of that office." Lauren typed back quickly. "I'd rather face 1,000 angry Vikings than listen to another colleague ask me if I believe in Santa." Clara's reply was instant. "You're officially the Scrooge of our generation." Lauren almost smiled, but the truth weighed too heavy on her. Christmas had lost its magic long ago. Her breakup the night before had sealed it. Everett, her boyfriend of 2 years, had finally admitted that long distance wasn't working. He had been across the country for nearly a year, and she had carried the relationship on her shoulders, clinging to hope until her strength finally broke. She shut off her phone and turned back to the cluttered desk. Piles of research papers, books marked with sticky notes, and half-filled coffee mugs surrounded her like defensive walls. This office was her fortress. Here, she could pretend that history mattered more than heartbreak. But the fortress was about to crack. A knock sounded on the door. She hesitated before calling out, "Come in." Professor Thomas Reynolds stepped inside with his usual air of superiority. His scarf was perfectly knotted, his tweed jacket spotless, and his smile a little too smug. He was a friend, yes, but also her rival, always eager to remind her of the competition in their field. "Still hiding away?" he asked, glancing around the dimly lit office. "You missed the party, Lauren. People were actually having fun." "I'll survive," she muttered. Thomas tilted his head, studying her face. "Everett." Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. "We broke up last night." He tried, unsuccessfully, to mask his satisfaction. "I never liked him, for you. Always thought he was more committed to his own ambitions than to you." Lauren crossed her arms. "That's none of your business, Thomas." "Perhaps not," he said lightly, "but I do have something that might cheer you up, or at least distract you." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of distraction?" He pulled a small folder from his leather satchel and slid it onto her desk. Inside were photographs of aged journals, their covers worn, the ink faded but still legible. These were recently donated to a small library in the Scottish Highlands, Thomas explained. 17th century diaries, potentially linked to early Celtic folklore. The dean wants someone to authenticate them, confirm they're real, maybe bring back a report. Lauren's fingers brushed over the photographs. Something inside her stirred professional curiosity, the thrill of discovery. "Why not send you?" she asked. "Because I'll be chained to my desk grading until New Year's. But you need a change of scenery. And let's be honest, your funding isn't exactly secure these days." Lauren's jaw tightened. She knew he was right. Budget cuts had been looming over her department for months, and she was dangerously close to losing her position. "If you find something remarkable," Thomas continued, lowering his voice, "you might just save your career." Lauren leaned back in her chair, torn between dread and temptation. Spend Christmas reliving awkward family gatherings, or chase history in the misty Highlands of Scotland. She glanced again at the blinking holiday lights. "Fine," she said at last. "I'll go." Thomas's grin widened. "Knew you couldn't resist. I'll send the travel details to your email." "You leave tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," she exclaimed. "Merry Christmas, Lauren." He winked before stepping out, leaving her alone with the decision that would change everything. Lauren exhaled, her heart pounding. Scotland, ancient diaries, a chance to prove herself. But somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't just about work. Something awaited her in those Highlands, something she could never have predicted. The icy wind hit Lauren the moment she stepped off the small bus that had carried her through miles of winding Scottish roads. She pulled her coat tighter and adjusted the strap of her satchel. The village looked as though it had been painted onto a Christmas card stone, cottages with smoke curling from chimneys, garlands of evergreen hanging over doorways, and faint golden lights glowing through frosted windows. Yet, despite its charm, Lauren felt a heaviness in her chest. She wasn't here for holiday magic. She was here to work. At the end of the narrow street, a sign swung gently in the breeze. Fraser Guest House, warm hearth, warm hearts. She hesitated at the gate before pushing it open. Inside, the air smelled of cinnamon and pine. The entryway was crowded with boots, coats, and wreaths. A plump woman in her late 50s appeared from the kitchen, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron. "You must be Lauren Carter," the woman said warmly. "I'm Margaret Fraser. Welcome to our home." Her voice carried a lilting Highland accent, musical and comforting. Lauren managed a small smile. "Thank you," she replied. Margaret's eyes softened as she took in Lauren's weary expression. "Long journey, Sit yourself down. You must be frozen." Before Lauren could respond, a boy hurried down the stairs, nearly tripping over his own feet. He had messy brown hair, an oversized rugby sweater, and an energy that filled the hallway like a spark. "Aunt Margaret, I finished stacking the firewood." He stopped mid-sentence when he noticed Lauren, his cheeks flushed red. "This is my nephew, Oliver," Margaret said, nudging him forward. "Oliver, this is our guest from America." "Hi," he muttered, shoving his hands in his pockets. Then, trying to recover his cool, he added, "So, do you actually know Tom Hanks?" Lauren blinked, startled by the question. No, sorry to disappoint." Oliver looked genuinely let down. "Figures. Aunt Margaret always says every American knows at least one movie star." Margaret laughed, swatting her nephew lightly with a dish towel. "Ignore him, dear. He's full of nonsense." As Margaret led Lauren toward the sitting room, a sudden click echoed from the corner. The string of Christmas lights above the fireplace flared to life, even though no one had touched the switch. Lauren jumped. "What was that?" "Oh, don't mind it," Margaret said cheerfully. "That's just Andrew saying hello." "Andrew, my late husband." Margaret's smile was sad, but not sorrowful. He adored Christmas. Ever since he passed, the lights seem to well switch on whenever he's near. "Don't be frightened. He means only to spread cheer." Lauren forced a polite smile, but unease prickled the back of her neck. Ghost stories were the last thing she needed. Oliver grinned mischievously. "You didn't think only castles had ghosts, did you?" "Oliver," Margaret scolded gently. Not everyone wants to hear about spirits their first night. But as Lauren followed them deeper into the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone unseen had been watching her since she arrived. Margaret showed her to a cozy room upstairs, complete with a quilted bedspread and a window that looked out over the snow-dusted hills. "Dinner's at 7, she said kindly. "And if you need a bite before then, the pub down the lane serves the best haggis in the village. Ask for Ewan. Tell him Margaret sent you." "Thank you," Lauren replied. Once alone, she set her satchel on the bed and pulled out the photocopies of the ancient diaries. The faded Gaelic words seemed to shimmer in the lamplight, whispering of secrets buried in the Highlands. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the window. And somewhere in the house, faintly, the Christmas lights flickered again like a heartbeat in the dark. Lauren told herself it was just faulty wiring. But a small voice inside wondered if Margaret was right. Maybe Andrew Fraser really was still here. By the time evening settled, the village pub was alive with warmth and noise. Golden lamplight spilled across the frosted windows, and the sound of laughter echoed into the cold night air. Lauren hesitated at the door, brushing snow from her coat before stepping inside. The scent of roasted meat and oak smoke wrapped around her instantly. Locals crowded the wooden tables, their cheeks flushed from whiskey and cheer. A fiddler played in the corner, his quick melody urging feet to tap along. Lauren slid onto a stool at the bar, grateful for the heat radiating from the stone fireplace. A bearded man behind the counter looked up, his sleeves rolled and his hands busy polishing a glass. "Evenin', what can I get you?" "Just a glass of Merlot, please," Lauren said, scanning the drink menu. The man froze, then raised a skeptical brow. "Merlot, you're in the Highlands, lass. Asking for wine here is like walking into Paris and ordering fast food." Lauren's lips twitched. "I don't like whiskey. It tastes like nail polish remover." The man barked out a laugh. "Then you've only had the cheap stuff. I'll pour you one of ours. A proper Highland whiskey." "I said I wanted wine, and I say you'll thank me later." He set aside the glass he had been polishing and reached for a bottle with a hand-painted label. The liquid glowed amber under the light. He poured a small measure and slid it across the bar. Lauren eyed it suspiciously. "What is it?" "Winter spirit," he said proudly. "Our family's special blend. Only made here." Lauren hesitated, then lifted the glass. The aroma was smoky yet sweet, with hints of spice. She took a cautious sip and blinked. It was smoother than she expected, warm without burning, with flavors that lingered like a memory. The man smirked. "Better than nail polish remover." I just set the glass down. "It's not terrible." High praise from an American, he teased. Lauren narrowed her eyes. "How do you know I'm American?" "The accent, and the fact you asked for Merlot." Before she could retort, Margaret's words from earlier returned to her. "Ask for Ewan. Tell him I sent you." "You must be Ewan," she asked. The man shook his head. "No, Ewan's my friend. I'm Liam Fraser." The name hit her with a strange familiarity. Margaret's nephew, which meant, "You're Andrew's son," she realized. The smirk faded slightly. Liam's expression grew guarded. That was my father." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Lauren felt awkward, unsure if she had touched on something too personal. But before she could apologize, a group of locals shouted Liam's name, demanding another round. He gave her a curt nod and moved down the bar to serve them. Lauren exhaled and stared into her whiskey. He was infuriating, arrogant, stubborn, smug, and yet there was something about him, something she couldn't name, that lingered like the taste of the drink he had given her. She didn't notice Oliver slip into the pub until he appeared at her side, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Aunt Margaret said you'd be here," he said, climbing onto the stool next to her. "So, what do you think of my cousin Liam?" Lauren hesitated, glancing toward the man behind the bar. Liam was laughing with a group of patrons now, but his eyes flicked toward her briefly, sharp and unreadable. "I think," Lauren said carefully, "that he's not as charming as he thinks he is." Oliver grinned. "Don't tell him that. He'd argue with you all night." As if on cue, Liam returned, resting his hands on the bar between them. "Argue about what?" "Nothing," Lauren said quickly. Liam tilted his head, a spark of amusement in his eyes. "You'll have to do better than that, lass. The Highlands don't take kindly to secrets." Lauren sipped her whiskey to avoid answering. And as the fire crackled, and the pub filled with laughter and song, she wondered how long she could keep her own secrets hidden in this place. Lauren sat cross-legged on her bed that night, the soft glow of the bedside lamp illuminating the brittle photocopies spread across the quilt. The Gaelic script looked almost alive, curling like vines across the faded pages. She leaned closer, whispering the words under her breath as though they might reveal their secrets if spoken aloud. The diary spoke of Bira, the goddess of winter known also as the Cailleach. She was said to have shaped the mountains of Scotland with stones from her basket, carved rivers with her staff, and commanded the storms of the north. But hidden among the myths were hints of something more tangible, references to a sanctuary, a sacred place where rituals were once performed in her honor. Lauren's pulse quickened. If the sanctuary existed, it could be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of her career. The floorboards creaked outside her room. She looked up, startled. A soft knock followed. "Come in," she called. Oliver poked his head in, carrying a plate of ginger biscuits. Aunt Margaret says you can't work on an empty stomach. Lauren smiled faintly. She's determined to keep me from starving. That's her superpower, Oliver said with a grin. He set the plate on the nightstand and glanced at the papers scattered across her bed. What are you working on? Old diaries, she explained. They mention a hidden sanctuary dedicated to a goddess called the Cailleach. Have you ever heard of her? Oliver's eyes widened. Of course. Everyone around here knows about her. She's the one who made the mountains, right? Lauren nodded, impressed. Exactly. The diary suggests there might still be a sacred site connected to her. I just don't know where to look. Oliver leaned closer, pointing to one of the sketches in the margin of the diary. That looks like the standing stones near Glen Torrin. My cousin Liam used to take me there when I was younger. Before Lauren could respond, another voice entered the room deeper, edged with amusement. Careful, Oliver. If you keep giving away our family secrets, she'll have the whole of Scotland dug up before New Year's. Lauren turned sharply. Liam leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his eyes flicking over the papers with interest. You shouldn't sneak up on people, she said, gathering the pages defensively. I wasn't sneaking. You two were talking loud enough to wake the dead. His lips quirked. Not that our house needs help with that. Lauren rolled her eyes. Your aunt already told me about your father's appearances. Then you'll fit right in. He stepped into the room, ignoring her attempt to hide the diary. So you're chasing fairy tales now? They're not fairy tales, she snapped. These are historical records. If this sanctuary exists, it could rewrite parts of Scottish history. Liam studied her for a long moment, then shrugged. Even if it does exist, the Highlands don't give up their secrets easy. You'd need someone who knows the land. Her eyes narrowed. And let me guess that someone is you. He smirked. Who else? For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. The tension between them was sharp, but beneath it was something else, something Lauren wasn't ready to name. Finally, she said, Fine. If you want to help, I won't stop you. But this is my research, my discovery. Understood, he said lightly. But don't blame me when you realize the Cailleach doesn't care much for outsiders. As he left, Oliver whispered conspiratorially. He pretends not to care, but he loves this kind of thing. He just doesn't want you to know. Lauren lay awake long after they left, staring at the ceiling. The words of the diary echoed in her mind. Where Beira washed her cloak, the waters turned to stone. Where she laid her staff, the earth itself trembled. Somewhere in these highlands, a sanctuary was waiting. And whether Liam liked it or not, she was going to find it. The next morning, Lauren followed the smell of cinnamon and roasted oats down to the guesthouse kitchen. Margaret was bustling between the stove and the counter, her apron dusted with flour, while Oliver sat at the table munching on toast, drowned in marmalade. Good morning, dear, Margaret greeted cheerfully. I hope you slept well. The Highlands can be a bit noisy at night, what with the wind howling and the pipes groaning. Lauren smiled faintly. I slept fine, though I did hear something. Lights flickering again. Ah, that'll be Andrew. Margaret's tone was casual, as if mentioning a neighbor who'd stopped by. He always liked to remind us he's still around, especially near Christmas. Oliver grinned. Last year, he knocked over the mince pies. Aunt Margaret swore it was the draft, but I know it was him. Lauren raised a brow. You actually believe in ghosts? Oliver shrugged. When you grow up here, you don't question it. The Highlands are full of spirits, whether you believe or not. Before Lauren could respond, Margaret set a steaming plate in front of her porch, topped with honey, cream, and a sprinkle of nutmeg. Eat up, dear, Christmas calories don't count. Lauren laughed softly and picked up her spoon. As they ate, Margaret began sharing local traditions. She told of the Yule log, carved with faces to ward off harsh winters, of the Cailleach dances held on Christmas Eve, and of the belief that every family should adopt a less fortunate household during the holidays, providing food or gifts. It's not about how much you give, Margaret said, her eyes warm. It's about reminding people they're not alone. Lauren listened intently, her spoon forgotten. There was a sincerity in Margaret's words that tugged at something deep within her. For so many years, Christmas had felt hollow, commercial, forced, but here, in this small village, it seemed to hold a different weight. Oliver leaned forward eagerly. And don't forget the Kaliak traditions. Some families still carve logs in her image, burning them on Christmas Eve to keep the winter from being too harsh. Lauren's interest sparked instantly. Carving logs in the image of the Kaliak eye, Margaret confirmed. Andrew used to carve one every year. Since he passed, Liam's been keeping the tradition. Though he grumbles about it, Lauren felt a strange shiver. The goddess she had been studying in old diaries wasn't just a myth, here she was woven into the very fabric of daily life. After breakfast, Margaret insisted on showing her the village. They walked through narrow lanes, strung with garlands and lanterns. Children chased one another through the snow, their laughter rising into the cold air. Shopkeepers waved from doorways, and nearly everyone seemed to know Margaret by name. Lauren was struck by the sense of community. So, unlike the anonymity of the city, she caught herself smiling, truly smiling for the first time in weeks. At the village square, Margaret stopped in front of a massive evergreen tree decorated with hand-carved ornaments. This tree's been here longer than I have. Every year, families add something new. Some say the spirits bless the village for it. Lauren reached out, brushing her fingers over a wooden ornament shaped like a stag. She thought of the diaries, of references to sacred animals tied to the Kaliak. Coincidence or something more? That night, back at the guest house, she found Liam in the workshop behind the house, knife in hand, shaping a log. The rough features of a woman's face began to emerge: sharp nose, stern eyes, flowing hair. The Kaliak, Lauren whispered. Liam glanced up, surprised to see her. It's tradition, he said simply. My father did it every year. Now it's my turn. She stepped closer, watching the careful movements of his hands. For the first time, she saw a different side of him, not the smug bartender, but a man tied to his family's past, carrying a weight he hadn't asked for. Do you believe she was real? Lauren asked softly. Liam hesitated, then shrugged. I believe the Highlands hold more than we can explain. Whether it's gods, ghosts, or just stories passed down, sometimes it doesn't matter. The belief itself is what keeps us going. Lauren felt her chest tighten. For years, she had clung to facts, evidence, proof. But here, in this quiet workshop, surrounded by wood shavings and candlelight, she wondered if belief alone could sometimes be enough. Snow had fallen thick across the village streets by the next morning. Lauren watched from her window as Liam trudged through it, his shoulders squared, his jaw tight. He wasn't heading toward the pub or the workshop. Instead, he turned down the lane that led toward the Fraser Distillery, the proud stone building she had noticed the day before, its chimney rising against the winter sky. Something in his stride told her he wasn't just going to check on the whiskey. Curious, Lauren bundled into her coat and scarf and decided to follow from a distance. The Fraser Distillery loomed at the edge of the village, weathered but dignified. Its sign bore the words "Winter Spirit," painted in gold that had faded with age. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of malt and oak barrels. Liam stood near the copper stills, speaking with a tall man in a tailored overcoat. The man's slicked-back hair and sharp features stood in stark contrast to Liam's rugged frame. His voice carried with a confidence that made Lauren instinctively dislike him. "Robert McLeod," Liam muttered when he noticed Lauren hovering by the doorway. His tone was flat, clipped, almost defensive. "He owns half the distribution in the Highlands." Robert turned with a polished smile. "And I could own the other half too. If only stubborn young men like you would stop clinging to the past." Lauren stiffened, sensing the tension. "This distillery is my family's legacy," Liam said firmly. "My father built it with his own hands." Robert spread his arms. And now, your father is gone. The world has changed, Liam. Small distilleries can't compete. Sell to me, and your name will remain on the bottle. You'll still be a part of it, just without the headaches. Liam's jaw clenched. You mean without the pride? Without the tradition? Without the soul? Robert's smile thinned. Pride doesn't pay debts. I hear you're behind on bottling costs. If Winter Spirit isn't on shelves by Christmas, you'll be finished. And when that happens, I'll be here ready to buy the ruins. Lauren's heart twisted. She could see the flicker of pain in Liam's eyes, though he hid it well. Get out, he said coldly. Robert adjusted his gloves, his smirk returning. Think it over. You've got, what, a week before the holiday? Time has a way of running out. With that, he swept past Lauren, offering her a sly nod as he left. She turned back to Liam. He was silent, his fists braced against the wooden table, his shoulders heaving. You didn't have to listen to that, he muttered. I wasn't eavesdropping, she said softly. The door was open. He shot her a sharp look, then sighed, the anger draining into wariness. McLeod's been circling for years. My father fought him off, but without him, he shook his head. I don't know if I can hold it together. Lauren hesitated, then placed a hand lightly on the table. You're stronger than you think. For a long moment, their eyes met. Beneath the frustration and pride, she saw something raw in him: fear, responsibility, longing. But Liam turned away, hiding it. Go back to your research, lass. This fight isn't yours. Lauren wanted to argue, to tell him that sometimes the line between one person's fight and another's blurred, but instead she nodded quietly. Still, as she left the distillery, she couldn't shake the thought. Liam Fraser might lose everything before Christmas, and somehow, though she had only just met him, the idea of him losing made her chest ache. The next afternoon, Lauren walked along a snow-dusted path that wound behind the Fraser guest house, the diary tucked securely under her arm. Her boots crunched over the frozen ground, and her breath formed small clouds in the crisp air. She had traced the diary's Gaelic entries into English all morning, and the words had led her here toward the hills, where stones were said to mark the goddess's path. She didn't expect Liam to already be there. He stood near a half-buried stone circle, his hands in his coat pockets, staring at the carvings etched into the ancient rocks. The wind tugged at his hair, his figure dark against the pale landscape. You're following the same trail, Lauren said, approaching carefully. Liam glanced over his shoulder. Or maybe you're following me. She held up the diary. These writings mention stones aligned with the stars, forming a guide to a sanctuary. This could be the first marker. He gave a short laugh. Or it could be just another field full of rocks. Scotland has plenty. Lauren stepped closer, crouching beside one of the stones. Her gloved fingers brushed across a faint spiral symbol. This isn't random. It's Pictish. It means something. For a long moment, Liam watched her, his skepticism softening into something like admiration. You really believe you'll find it, don't you? He asked quietly. I have to, she admitted. My job is on the line. If I don't bring back something extraordinary, I'll lose everything I've worked for. His gaze darkened. So it's not just about history. It's about survival. Lauren looked up, meeting his eyes. Isn't that what this distillery is for you? Survival. The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Liam exhaled slowly, his breath fogging in the air. My father poured his life into Winter Spirit. He believed it was more than whiskey. Said it carried the soul of our family, our land, our traditions. When he died, it felt like all of it was handed to me, whether I wanted it or not. Lauren's chest tightened. That's a heavy burden. His voice dropped. Sometimes I wonder if I'm already failing him. Without thinking, she reached out, her hand brushing his arm. You're not failing, you're fighting. That's what matters. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he glanced at her hand, and she pulled it back quickly, heat rising in her cheeks. They continued their search in silence, scanning the stones, comparing them to the diary's drawings. As the sun dipped lower, the sky flared with streaks of pink and gold. At last, Lauren pointed toward a ridge. "Look, the alignment, these stones lead straight toward those hills." Liam studied the horizon, then nodded reluctantly. "Maybe you're onto something." She smiled faintly. "Does that mean you'll help me?" He smirked. "Don't push your luck." But when they turned back toward the village, their steps fell into rhythm, side by side. Neither admitted it aloud, but both felt it. Their paths were beginning to intertwine. The guest house was quiet that night, the kind of silence that makes every creak of wood sound louder than it should. Lauren sat at the small writing desk in her room, scribbling notes from the diary. The fire in the hearth had burned low, its embers casting faint shadows on the wall. She paused, rubbing her eyes. The words on the page swam together in her exhaustion. She pushed back her chair and stood to stretch, when the Christmas lights strung above the window flickered to life. Lauren froze. There was no switch near the desk, no timer, and yet the lights glowed steadily, bathing the room in a soft golden glow. Her breath quickened. "Hello," she whispered, feeling foolish. The air shifted, colder than before. A faint scent of pine and smoke drifted across the room, so distinct it made her chest tighten. And then she heard it, a low creak, like footsteps on the floorboards just beyond her door. Heart pounding, she opened the door. The hallway was empty, only the distant tick of the grandfather clock breaking the silence. Lauren. She nearly jumped out of her skin. Margaret was at the top of the stairs, holding a candle. "You all right, dear? You look as if you've seen a ghost." Lauren swallowed. "Maybe I have. The lights in my room, they just turned on by themselves." Margaret's expression softened, almost tender. "That'll be Andrew. He was always fond of the lights. Never let a Christmas go by without honing them in every corner of the house. I suppose he still likes to be part of it." Lauren hesitated. "You really believe he's here?" "I don't need to believe," Margaret said simply. "I feel him, especially this time of year." From the shadows of the hallway, Oliver's voice piped up. He once knocked over Uncle Liam's whiskey glass when he was about to make a terrible toast. Saved us all from hearing it. "Oliver," Margaret scolded gently, though she was smiling. Lauren forced a nervous laugh, but her chest was tight. She wanted to dismiss it as faulty wiring, as coincidence, but the air still carried that unmistakable scent of smoke, as if someone had been standing right beside her. Later that night, she found Liam in the workshop, finishing the carving of the Cailleach log. The candlelight flickered across his face, casting deep shadows under his eyes. "You believe your father is still here, don't you?" Lauren asked quietly. Liam paused, his knife hovering above the wood. "I don't know what I believe, but sometimes, when the house is quiet, I swear I can feel him. Watching, guiding. Maybe it's just grief, playing tricks." Lauren stepped closer, her voice soft. "I don't think it's just grief." He looked at her then, searching her face as though weighing her words. "So the skeptic believes in ghosts now?" "I'm starting to believe that not everything can be explained." A silence stretched between them, charged with something unspoken. Then Liam set down the knife and brushed the wood shavings from his hands. "Careful, Lauren Carter," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The Highlands have a way of changing people. Back in her room, as she settled into bed, Lauren glanced once more at the glowing Christmas lights. This time, she didn't turn them off. Instead, she whispered into the quiet, "Good night, Andrew." And for the briefest moment, she swore the air warmed around her, like the hush of a father's blessing. Snowflakes swirled across the village green as Oliver sprinted across the field, rugby ball tucked under his arm. His breath came in sharp bursts, cheeks flushed from the cold and the weight of unspoken worries. Margaret and a handful of villagers cheered from the sidelines, their voices carrying in the icy air. Lauren stood beside them, pulling her scarf higher around her chin. She had come to watch Oliver's practice, but her mind was elsewhere on the looming threat of job loss. On the half-translated diary pages, on the whisper of a sanctuary that might never be found. Oliver stumbled as another boy tackled him, but he bounced back up, determination in his eyes. He wasn't the strongest player, but his grit was undeniable. Still, she could see something was eating at him. After practice, he lingered near the fence, kicking at the snow with his boot. "You played well," Lauren said, approaching. He shrugged. "Doesn't matter if I don't play in the Christmas match. You're not playing." He hesitated. "Coach says the team's full. Besides, Charlotte will be there. And if I mess up in front of her, I'll never live it down." Lauren softened. "You like her?" His ears turned red. "Maybe. But she only sees me as a friend. If I tell her, and she says no, it'll ruin everything." She smiled gently. "Oliver, when I was your age, I thought silence was safe. But silence can be the worst kind of answer. Sometimes you have to take the risk." He studied her face, then asked quietly, "Is that what you're doing with Liam? Taking the risk?" Lauren blinked, caught off guard. "That's different." Oliver grinned, knowingly. "Is it?" Before she could reply, Liam's voice called from across the field. "Oliver, quit daydreaming. Help me carry these posts." Oliver groaned, but jogged off. Lauren's chest tightened as she watched Liam move strong, focused, but with that same heaviness in his shoulders she'd noticed before. That evening, Lauren sat in the guest house study, surrounded by scattered diary pages. She was mid-translation when her phone buzzed. The name on the screen made her stomach drop. Thomas Reynolds. She answered hesitantly. "Thomas." His voice was brisk. "Lauren, I just got out of a meeting with the dean. The budget cuts are worse than we feared. They're planning to eliminate your position entirely effective next month." Her throat tightened. "What? Even if I find the sanctuary?" Thomas sighed. "Lauren, the board doesn't believe the sanctuary exists. They think you're chasing myths. I've tried to fight for you, but it doesn't look good." She gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. "So I'm being fired. I'm sorry. I'll keep pushing, but you should prepare for the worst. Maybe consider the museum job in Chicago," I mentioned. "I don't want to fall back," she snapped, cutting him off. "I want to prove them wrong." "Then you'd better find a miracle," Thomas said quietly, before the line went dead. Lauren sat frozen, her pulse hammering. Around her, the shadows seemed to deepen, and the diary pages blurred through tears she refused to shed. Later, at dinner, she tried to mask her turmoil, but Margaret's eyes were too sharp. "You've got something weighing on you, dear," the older woman said gently. Lauren forced a smile. "Just tired." Oliver looked up from his plate. "She's worried about her job," he blurted. "Oliver," Lauren warned. But Margaret reached across the table, covering Lauren's hand with her own. "Don't lose hope, lass. Sometimes the darkest nights bring the brightest dawns." Her words settled like an ember in Lauren's chest. She wanted to believe them. She wanted to believe that miracles weren't just for stories. And yet, as she glanced at Liam, who sat silently pushing food around his plate, she knew they were both standing at the edge of battles they weren't sure they could win. He with his family's legacy, she with her life's work, both tied to Christmas. Both in danger of being lost. The night of the Christmas ball arrived with a hush of snow falling over the village, blanketing rooftops and streets in sparkling white. Lanterns glowed from every doorway, casting warm light onto the icy paths that led toward the town hall, where laughter and music spilled into the night. Lauren adjusted the deep green dress Margaret had insisted she borrowed, smoothing the fabric nervously. She wasn't used to dances, to crowds, to being seen. But tonight felt different, like something was waiting. Margaret beamed as she fussed over her. "You look beautiful, lass." My Andrew would have said the same, if he were here. Oliver appeared in the doorway, tugging at the collar of his borrowed suit. He looked uncomfortable but determined. "Charlotte will be there," he said, as if reminding himself. Margaret kissed his cheek. "Then don't waste your chance, lad. Christmas is for bravery." The hall was alive with music, fiddlers playing reels while villagers danced in quick circles. Garlands of evergreen hung from the beams, and candles flickered in every corner. The scent of mulled cider mingled with laughter. Lauren lingered by the edge of the crowd, her heart thumping, and then she saw him. Liam stood near the far wall, dressed simply but striking all the same. His dark hair was neatly combed, and his eyes sought hers almost instantly. For a moment, the noise of the room faded. "You clean up well," she said when he reached her. He gave a half smile. "You don't look too bad yourself, Carter." Before she could respond, a fiddler called for a slower dance, couples pairing off across the floor. Liam extended his hand. "Care to?" Lauren hesitated, then placed her hand in his. His grip was warm, steady, grounding. They moved together through the steps, her clumsy missteps met with his patient guidance. She laughed breathlessly as he spun her. "I'm terrible at this." "You're fine," he said softly. "Just stop thinking so much. Let the music carry you." For once, she did. And for a fleeting moment, she wasn't an archaeologist fighting for her career, nor a woman scarred by heartbreak. She was simply Lauren, moving with Liam in the glow of Christmas lights. Meanwhile, Oliver spotted Charlotte near the refreshment table, her golden hair catching the candlelight. His heart hammered as he crossed the floor. "Hey," he said, his voice cracking slightly. Charlotte smiled. "Hey yourself. You look different." "Nice, thanks." He faltered, nerves tangling his tongue. But then he remembered Lauren's words. "Silence is the worst answer." "I like you, Charlotte," he blurted. "Not just as a friend. More than that." Charlotte blinked, surprised. Then her smile softened. "I was starting to think you'd never say it." Oliver's jaw dropped. "Why'd you like me too?" She laughed. "Of course I do, silly." His grin nearly split his face. For the first time, he felt weight lift off his chest, replaced by something brighter. Back on the dance floor, Liam's hand lingered at the small of Lauren's back. "You've got a way of stirring things up around here," he murmured. "Is that a compliment?" "Maybe." His eyes held hers, something unspoken passing between them. "I don't know what happens after Christmas, but I don't want this to end." Her breath caught. "Neither do I." The music swelled around them, but Lauren barely heard it. In that moment, surrounded by laughter, candlelight, and the hush of falling snow outside, the world felt smaller, closer, and infinitely more magical. And though neither spoke the words aloud, both knew something had shifted. Not just research, not just tradition. Something real. The morning after the ball, the Highlands lay hushed under a pale winter sun. Snow glistened across the hills, and the air carried the stillness of a secret waiting to be uncovered. Lauren and Liam trudged side by side through the drifts, following the faint trail of standing stones she had mapped from the diary's pages. "This could be a wild goose chase," Liam muttered, though his pace never slowed. "Or it could be the discovery of a lifetime," Lauren countered, her breath puffing white in the air. They climbed higher, the ground growing rockier, until the ridge opened onto a secluded hollow. There, half buried by snow and time, stood a circle of stones unlike any Lauren had seen before. They were massive, each carved with spirals and symbols that matched the sketches in the diary. Her heart raced. "This is it," she whispered. "The sanctuary of the Cailleach." Liam approached one of the stones, brushing frost from its surface. "It's older than anything I've seen around here." "You were right." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled through the hollow, carrying a sound almost like a voice. Lauren shivered, but it wasn't from the cold. "I can't believe it," she said, tears pricking her eyes. "All these years of chasing myths, and here it is." Liam studied her, his expression softening. "You've proved yourself, Lauren. Not just to your university. To yourself." Her chest tightened, the weight of his words settling deep. She thought of the dean's decision, of Thomas's warning. Would this be enough to save her career? But before she could dwell, Liam's tone grew darker. MacLeod won't care about any of this. He'll see only the land, the value. If he gets his hands on the distillery, this, he gestured to the stones, will be trampled under his greed. Lauren placed a hand on the nearest stone, feeling the grooves of the ancient carvings beneath her palm. Then we protect it, together. Their eyes met, fierce with unspoken promise. They spent hours documenting the site, Lauren sketching frantically, while Liam cleared snow to reveal more carvings. Among the markings, she found one that made her breath catch, a stag, etched in bold lines. The stag, she murmured. The diary mentioned it, a sacred symbol of the Kaliak. This confirms it. Liam leaned closer. And my father's favorite animal, he said quietly. He always said stags were guardians of the Highlands. Lauren felt a chill ripple through her. It was as if Andrew Fraser himself had led them here. As twilight fell, they sat together on a fallen stone, exhaustion and wonder mingling in the air. You've got your miracle, Liam said softly. Lauren turned to him, her voice trembling. And you, maybe you've got your hope. If this discovery draws attention, it could bring life back to your distillery. Heritage, tourism, funding. People would fight to protect this place. He studied her for a long moment, then reached for her hand. Maybe I don't just need hope for the distillery. Her breath caught as their fingers intertwined, warm despite the cold. In the shadow of the ancient sanctuary, surrounded by the whispers of gods and ghosts, they found not just history, but each other. Christmas Eve rose clear and cold, the kind of morning that made the air itself feel crystalline, as if every breath might shatter it. The Highlands sparkled beneath fresh snow, rooftops glinting like frosted crowns. In the square, the spruce tree stood dressed in its garlands and ornaments, waiting for nightfall when its lights would be lit in a ceremony that had bound the village together for generations. But inside the Fraser guest house, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Liam sat at the dining table, a stack of unpaid invoices and letters spread before him like a battle he couldn't win. Margaret poured tea, her movements firm but kind. You can't carry this alone, lad, she said, setting a steaming cup by his elbow. Let the community help. I don't want charity, Liam muttered, rubbing his temples. It isn't charity, Oliver said, surprising them both with the steadiness of his voice. His young face was flushed, but his eyes didn't waver. The Christmas rugby match raised money every year, but this time, it's different. Everyone knows where it's going. It's for winter spirit. For us. For you. Liam shook his head. Oliver, don't you see? Oliver pressed, leaning forward with an urgency that reminded Lauren of Liam himself. You've given everything to this village. Every dram of whiskey, every ceilidh, every celebration, you've kept it alive. Now it's our turn to keep you. Lauren stepped closer, her voice softer, but no less resolute. You don't have to fight every battle on your own, Liam. Strength isn't just carrying the load yourself. Sometimes it's trusting others to carry it with you. His eyes found hers, searching. For so long, he had borne his father's legacy like a weight strapped to his shoulders. But in that moment, something shifted. He saw not pity, but partnership in their faces. Margaret's steady love, Oliver's fierce loyalty, Lauren's quiet faith. That afternoon, the village gathered on the frosted field for the annual Christmas match. Scarves in red, green, and gold waved like banners in the stands. Children shrieked with laughter, their boots crunching in the snow. The whistle cut the cold air, and the game began. Oliver sprinted down the pitch, his determination raw and unpolished, but strong. He stumbled, recovered, tackled hard, and laughed as the crowd roared its approval. By the final whistle, he was red-cheeked and breathless, and Charlotte ran across the field to hug him, her laughter mixing with his. Their joy was so pure that even the skeptics on the sidelines clapped in reluctant delight. Donations poured in at the edge of the field. Folded bills, envelopes with handwritten notes of encouragement, even jars of coins emptied from kitchen cupboards. It wasn't wealth, it was something better. It was sacrifice. It was love. That evening, the village hall filled to bursting. Long tables bent under the weight of roasted meats, steaming puddings, spiced cider. The air buzzed with warmth and song. Every face carried the glow of purpose. Liam stood at the head of the hall, the weight of an envelope heavy in his hands. He cleared his throat, and the chatter subsided into expectant silence. "I thought I had to protect my family's legacy alone," he said, voice thick. "But tonight, you've shown me I never was alone. This distillery isn't only mine, it belongs to all of you. It always has, and because of you, Winter Spirit will not die. It will live. We will bottle before New Year, and when you raise a glass, it'll be with pride that we did it together." Cheers thundered, rattling the rafters. Some wept openly. Others raised their glasses high. Margaret's eyes shone with tears she didn't bother to hide. Lauren's heart swelled at the sight. She had traveled across an ocean chasing an ancient myth, but what she had found was a miracle rooted in the present. Later, as snow drifted gently past the windows, Margaret carried the carved Cailleach log into the hearth. With care, she set it on the fire and struck a match. Flames licked its edges, then engulfed it, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The goddess's face seemed to come alive, stern yet kind, before slowly crumbling into glowing embers. And then, just for a heartbeat, the shadow of a man joined the dance. Andrew Fraser, tall and smiling, as if he had only stepped out for a moment and returned in time to witness the miracle his family had wrought. Margaret whispered, "Merry Christmas, my love," and the fire crackled in reply. Lauren felt her breath hitch, tears stinging her eyes. Liam slipped an arm around her shoulders, grounding her in the moment. He leaned close, his voice low. "Stay," he said simply. "Not for the distillery. Not for the work. For me." Lauren turned to him, her heart full. She thought of the lonely office in the city, of the blinking lights on tired windows, of the life she had almost resigned herself to. Then she looked at Liam, steady, stubborn, full of hope he didn't always admit, and she knew the answer. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." He kissed her, and it wasn't a promise of perfection, it was a beginning. Outside, the bells in the square began to ring. Midnight, Christmas Day. The village erupted in song, voices rising together in joy that belonged not to one person but to everyone. Children twirled, couples embraced, neighbors clasped hands. In the guest house window, the Christmas lights flickered once, then glowed steady, brighter than ever, as if Andrew himself had given his blessing. Lauren leaned her head against Liam's shoulder. The Highlands had given her more than a sanctuary, more than a discovery. They had given her family. They had given her love. They had given her a Christmas miracle. Spring would come late to the Highlands, but when it did, the sanctuary was marked with care and reverence. Local volunteers built a path, each stone laid with pride. The Heritage Council recognized the site, ensuring it would never be touched by greed. Visitors came in whispers, not waves, learning to tread softly. At the distillery, new barrels filled the yard. Orders doubled. Winter Spirit found its way to shelves not only in Scotland but across the sea, carrying with it a story bottled in every drop. Oliver and Charlotte studied side by side at the kitchen table, laughter spilling as easily as arguments over math problems and poetry. Margaret planted rosemary in the garden, for remembrance, she told Lauren. And for lamb roast. Lauren's research paper was published, her discovery hailed by those who understood. The dean who had doubted her sent a stiff note. She smiled, set it aside, and poured another glass of Winter Spirit. She wasn't chasing approval anymore. She had found her place. On the anniversary of Andrew's passing, Margaret lit a single candle by the carved stag in the village square. The lights above the guest house flickered once, bright and steady, as though he was still watching. Lauren whispered, "Good night, Andrew," and in the hush that followed, she felt the warmth of home. And so, in the quiet of the Highlands, we learned that some miracles are not carved in stone or written in ancient diaries. They are born in the warmth of community, the courage to love again, and the faith that even winter will someday yield to spring. Thank you for staying with us until the very last snowflake of this tale. Your time here means the world to us. If this story touched you, we invite you to gently press the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss the next journey we share together. And we'd love to hear from you. What tradition or memory makes your winter feel brighter? Share it in the comments. We read each and every one. When you're ready for another lasting tale, join us in our next story, where a forgotten letter, found in a London bookshop, will open a door no one ever knew existed. Lasting tales where stories hold the light just a little longer.